Now let us check and see and learn something about the parameters, the configuration parameters that control uh, many aspects of how EAM functions, the module EAM functions, okay? So let us look at the EAM related parameters, okay? So so let's go back and go out and come back in again for the path. So go to maintain the parameters, go to transaction SPRO, on SAP reference IMG, govern risk and compliance, and then access control, and then say maintain configuration settings. Okay, now, so this is the place where you maintain the parameters related to all the modules, right? So for example, risk analysis. The risk analysis parameters, they begin with 1000, okay, 1000 something. They're all related to risk analysis. Okay. So for example, if you look at workflow, again, it's 1100 something, part of 1000 risk analysis only. Emergency access management begin with 4000. Access request management begin with 2000. Okay, so in this video, we are interested in EAM related parameters. Okay, so EAM related parameters that begin with 4000. Okay, 4000, anywhere between 4000 to let's say 5000 is related to EAM. Okay, now each of these parameters have a significance. Okay, they have a meaning, and depending on what values is set here, the different functionalities will behave. Okay, within EAM. Okay, so for example, let's say you're saying, or in this case, iterative change log, right? If you say yes here, the logs will be captured. If it says the logs will not be, if you say no, the logs will not be captured. Okay. So for example, there's another example is how long the validity period of the firefighter ID. Okay, here it says we have for 3 days. If you say 30 days, the firefighter ID will be valid for 30 days. So depending on how or what values is set for the parameters, the EM will behave accordingly. Okay, the functionality within EAM. So to add a new parameter or to add a parameter, click on new entries. Okay, now click on new entries. In the parameter group, select emergency access management, and from the drop down, you can select the parameter that you want. Okay, now let us one by one check what these parameters are. Okay, one by one we'll go through parameter 4000. So what does it do? So 4000 is the mandatory one, okay? So you have to maintain parameter 4000 in GRC system as well as the plugin system. So this is a mandatory parameter. Along with that 4000, the another mandatory parameter is for 4010. Okay, these two are mandatory. Rest of them are not, they're optional. Okay, if you want to use them depending on how you want the EM to behave. You can set them up accordingly. But 4000 and 4010, these are two mandatory parameters that you need to set in both the GRC system as well as the plugin system. Okay. Now what does 4000 mean? Okay, 4000 is application type. So in this parameter, you basically set up what type of EM are you going to use? Are you going to use ID-based firefighting or role-based firefighting? Okay, so the parameter values are either one or two. So if you say 4,000, and then the value is going to be either 1 or 2, right? 1 is for ID, the other, the role is 2 is for for the role. Okay. So like I said, this you need to set up in a plugin system also. All right, let's go and check the next parameter. So I'm not going to do anything because, we'll cancel this. Because those parameters are already set, right? So I'm not going to do anything with those. So let's go and check. This is one, right? So one is for ID. The other is for role. 2 is for role. Okay. 4001. Okay. What is that? 4001 says default firefighter validity period. Okay, so this period is in days. Okay, so you said here you specify the number of days the firefighter ID assignment is going to be valid. Okay, and in SAP this is only default value which can be overridden for each assignment as needed in the front end system. Okay, and this is also another one that is mandatory. This could be relevant in target system also. Okay. The next parameter that you have is 4002. Okay. So this is for sending emails immediately, but however, this particular one is actually now become obsolete and it is no longer used in SAP access control. So this is not important for us right now. Okay. The next object, the next parameter that you need to look at is 4003. Now these are all, I would say, mandatory in the GRC system because you would really like to, retrieve the capture, change logs, system logs, and audit logs and OS logs, right? So I would set them up to say yes. Okay, 4003, 4005, 4, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so what does 4003 do? So it actually, so 4000 parameter 4003 retrieves change log. Okay, so the value, possible values again in this case is yes or no. Okay, either yes or no. So I set it to yes because you would like to retrieve the change logs, right? So if you set this parameter to yes, right, 4002, no, not 4002, 4003 parameter to yes. So the application fetches the change log when a user chooses the update firefighter log button in the NWBC side. We'll see once we get to that point. So it fetches the change log information, okay? Or either you can, basically this is when you say update the firefighter log, it basically execute the sync update program in the GRC system. Okay. Now, one important point about these logs is, right, very important point, very critical point, is that in the plugin systems, okay, and the GRC system as well, okay, must have the OS time and the ECC, ABAP system, the ECC R3 time zone system, both the systems have to match, okay? So for example, what it means is if you go to more system status, and now we are in the GRC system, right? What it says is the time zone, okay, in the system, okay, has to match that's time zone in the backend system also. That is your plugin system. In our case, it's the ECC system. So the time zone in both the systems has to be, see, this is a CET, right? Which is not matching. So now when we run, in this case, when we run the the logs, the logs will not be captured because the time zones are not matching. So this is very important for the change logs to be captured. And the time zones have to match in both at the OS level as well as in the ABAP system level. So we are not checking in the ABAP system level, but at the OS level also for both the systems, the front end that is the GRC system and the plugin system, the time zones have to match. Okay, so this is very important. So in our case, we will not get the logs now because of the time zones are not matching. So we'll see what to do with that. Okay, now why is this so? Because the stat transaction code, right? All it stores the logs in the OS files. Okay, so whatever you do in SAP, the logs that get generated, they are stored at the OS level. Okay, so that is why the time zones in the SAP ABAP style on the ABAP side as well as the OS level, the time zones have to match. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, for proper generation of logs. Okay, so let's go back to our front-end system and the GRC system. Okay, so the next parameter that we have is 4004. Okay, retrieve system log. So again, the values like you said, see, again it's a yes or a no. Okay, so I would set it to yes because you would like to retrieve the system log also. So what this one does is, when you set this to yes, the application fetches the system log. That is the debug changes when a user chooses to run that the sync job Firefighter sync job program, or by clicking on the update Firefighter log on the NWBC side. Okay. So this is again you need to set to yes. Okay. Now the next one is 4005. Again, it has retrieve audit logs, right? This again needs to either you can set it to yes or a no. We'll set it to yes. Now in this case, the mandatory thing is to capture the audit logs in the backend system in your ECC plugin system. SM19 has the filter needs to be activated. Okay, here. So if you say activate this, okay, so I'm going to change. Let's say deactivate this for now. And say filter. And you need to capture all the events, okay? For all users, all clients, active, and say activate. Ensure everything is set. Now, if you want to set up, let's say, a static configuration, you can create one if you want to. Okay. And then select the filter active and then select all and do that if you want to. Okay. And say save. All right. So this is a mandatory thing. Okay. So for capturing the audit logs, SM19 has to be, the filters in SM19 has to be active. Okay, so what this one does is that if you set it to yes, the application fetches the audit security log when a user executes or chooses to update the Firefighter log. Okay, when he clicks on that button, or when the sync update program is GRC SPM, that EAM sync log sync update program is run. Okay. So you have to mandatorily activate the logs in SM19. And again, this is in the plugin system. Okay, this is important. The next parameter that you have is 4006. Again, the values are either yes or no, right? What does this do? So we'll set it to yes. So this one basically sets up, fetches the OS command log. Okay, when the user chooses to update the user syncs runs the sync job program. Okay, job. So this OS command logs track information when the OS commands SM49 is used for creating or change or executed. Okay. So when SM49 or SM69 type of command transaction codes are used to create OS commands, the logs are tracked and generated. So you need this for that. Okay, so you need to set it to yes. In most cases, they won't do it, but you can set it to no also. But set it to yes anyway, there's no harm. Okay, so 4006. The next one is 4007, right? So what does 4007 do? Send log report execution notification immediately. Okay, so this, what it says is, and again, this one again also has yes or no, right? So what this one does is, this one can, when you set this parameter to yes, so what it can do is the application can send log reports to controllers. Okay. So the application sends the notification, as emails or workflow item based on the configuration for the controllers. Okay, so this again, anytime this thing happens, this sending of log report is always done when you run the EAM's log sync update program. Okay, either from NWBC or if you have it scheduled as a background job in the GRC system. Now, what happens if you set it to no? Now, if you set the value to no, what happens is the application only collects the logs when a user chooses to update the Firefighter log button. Okay, so only it's not collected automatically. It's a manual intervention when you say no, the collection of the logs in this case. Okay, the notifications. Now there is a dependency for 4007. Okay, now the dependency is that this will only if you set work, if you set even 4009 to yes. Okay, so there is a dependency here. Now, also point to note here again is that a separate email or workflow is created for each EAM session that is performed. Okay, for every EAM session, you'll have one separate email notification. Okay, so let's go to 4008 now. Okay, so what does 4008 do? Send Firefighter ID login notification. Again, the values are yes and no. Okay, yes and no. So what does this do? So if you set it to yes, right, the application sends an email notification to the controller whenever a firefighter executes a firefighter session. So whenever somebody invokes the firefighter session, the controller for that firefighter ID gets an email notification. Okay, but if you set it to no, the value is set to no in this case for 4008. You do that if you do not want the application to send an email notification to the controller. Okay, that's the only difference. So yes will send the email notification to the controller and no will not send the email notification. Now we just saw 4009. 4009 again there is a dependency for 4007. So if you set the parameter value, again, for 4009 also there is a yes. Okay, the values are yes or no. So depending on if you're using workflow and ERM and all, this notification parameters should be set. Otherwise, they're not needed. Okay, so they're optional. Okay. Now, in 4009, if you set this to an yes, okay, so the application sends an email notification to the controller or executes workflow when a user chooses to update Firefighter log. Okay. Again, like as we know, there is a dependency for 4007 on this. Along with, so along with 4009, you need to set 4007 also to yes. Okay, then second parameter that is mandatory, okay, in both the plugin systems as well as the GRC system is 4010. Now this is where you specify the Firefighter ID role name. Okay, so this is the SAP delivered Firefighter role. You can specify this. So this role needs to exist in both your GRC system as well as the plugin system. Okay, now this informs the application that the user who is logging on to the plugin target system is a Firefighter ID. Okay, so this role identifies and tells the system that this particular user ID is a Firefighter user ID. So what happens is the target system makes a call to the GRC system and reads this configuration to check if the user has this role assigned to them or not. Okay. So you either use the SAP delivered one or you make a copy of this. Okay, but this parameter has to be set. Okay, the value in both the GRC system and the plugin system has to be the same. Keep that in mind. Next that you have is 4012. These are all, optional from now, from this point on. You don't really need them. Let's see what 4012 does. Okay, so default users for forwarding audit log workflow. So this parameter is used to restrict the users to whom the EAM log workflow can be forwarded. So if you set it to 1, right, in this case, the workflow can be forwarded to any user in the GRC system. Okay. However, if you set it to 2, again, if it has 2, okay, to all users and only controllers. So 2 will only forward it to the controllers. Okay. All right. 4013. Again, the value, again, in this case is yes and no, right? So what does this mean? What does it say? Firefighter ID owner can submit request for Firefighter ID owned. Okay, again, if you're using ARM and MSMP, this is when these parameters will come into play. Okay, otherwise they are again optional. So basically it says, Firefighter ID owner can submit request for Firefighter ID owned. So again, the values are yes or no. Based on what value you set, the Firefighter ID owner, okay, the owner can submit requests for himself or not. So if a yes, the Firefighter owner can submit a request for himself. But if you said no, he cannot. Somebody else has to do that for him. Okay. 4014. Same Firefighter thing, but in this case, it's for controller. Okay, so based on the value, again the values are yes and no. Based on the parameter value, the Firefighter ID controller can submit a request for himself or not. Okay. So again, these are all optional. So let's say 4015. Enable decentralized firefighting, right? Typically, this should be set to no. Okay, so let's set it to no. because we don't want to enable firefighting in that plugin system, right? So we set it to no. Okay. So based on this parameter, you can enable EAM Launchpad on non-GRC systems or not. Okay. $4,020. What does it say? Generate EAM log for Firefighter session with no activity. Okay, but before you do that, let's go and check new entries because we need to, I think we jump some parameters. For 4,000, so we had 4,015 and then somebody said for 4,020, they missed 4,017 and 4,018, right? So what does the 4,018 do? It says enable CUP request note to be shown in the firefighter. Number to be shown in the firefighter ID log assignment, right? So what this one is, the firefighter ID is requested to be assigned to the firefighter user during access request process. Okay, so when during ARM, it will assign a request number. Okay, so setting this parameter to yes, right? You say yes. Ensures that this request number is visible in the firefighter and firefighter ID and firefighter maintenance screens in the comment column. Okay, so this is a way to track the progress of the request. So this parameter, again, it's optional only if you use it only if you're implementing ARM. But if you set it to no, it will result in the request not being visible in the firefighter ID and firefighter maintenance screens in the comment column. Okay, so that's the only difference. Let's go and check the other one, 4017, and now let us go and check 4018. So, okay, so this is basically saying enable logging, detailed logging for EAM logs synchronization program. So if you, for this, you will be useful in troubleshooting basically, right? So I would say I'll set it to yes. Okay. So what this does is, so SAP Access Control keeps logs of firefighting activities on the plugin systems. So the logs are synchronized back to the central system and the data goes into firefighting reports. Okay, so if you set it to yes, the logs are synchronized from the plugin system into the GRC system. Okay, and then you can see it in the firefighting reports. Now, sometimes the errors may occur that disrupt the synchronization of the logs from the plugin systems to the central system. So SLG1 will basically tell you what happened and what the problem was. So if you set it to yes, it will enable detailed logging in SLG1. So this is very useful when it comes to troubleshooting. All right, now let's save it and now go back to the next parameter that you had was after 4018 was 4020, right? That's what we saw. So we had 4020. What does 4020 say? Generating EAM logs for firefighter sessions with no activity. Okay, so this parameter controls whether to send EAM log review workflow even if the firefighter has not performed any activity. Okay, sometimes somebody would invoke and the firefighter session but do nothing, they will not do anything for whatever reasons. So in this case, so this we set this parameter to yes. Okay, so it will generate the EAM log review even if there is no activity performed. Again, for the parameter 4009, like we saw in case of 4007, 4009, parameter 4009 must be set to yes for this parameter. This is for 4020 to be considered. Okay, so I would set it to yes. Okay, the next one is 4025. Right before this, let's go and do it again because it seems they skipped another parameter here. So let's go to EAM, parameter ID, 4020, and then you have 4021, right? What does it say? Use ELV grade for firefighter filter transaction. Now this is only used when you're using what do you call centralized EAM, okay? So for the centralized EAM launchpad, is only valid for that. So if you input the transaction GRC underscore EAM underscore filter, it will display the filter criteria, okay, for the firefighter ID. So this again, I would say I won't use it. There's only the way the output is given to you, okay, in the ALV format or not. Let's say yes, doesn't matter. Okay. The next in the parameter that you have in your list is 4025. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so you have 4025. Again, the value they set, somebody set it to yes. So restrict firefighter ID validity period during access request. Again, the values are yes or no. And again, the dependence in this case is 4001. What is 4001? The validity period for the firefighter ID. Okay. So if you set this to yes, right, 4025, if you set it to yes, the firefighter validity period will be restricted for access requests based on the number of days set in parameter 4001. Okay. So if you set this 4025 to yes, so if you set this parameter to yes, so what it means is that firefighter validity period for the access request, right, that you apply through EAM will be valid, those requests will be valid for the number of days set in 4001 parameter. Okay, so the last parameter in which is in EAM is 5033. Okay, so that thing is not, that parameter is not set yet. So let's go to 5033, set it up. Right, so let's say 5053. And what did it say? Allow firefighters with no controllers. Again, the values, parameter values are again yes or no, right? So this again an optional one, right? So if you set this to yes, then you can create firefighters without requiring a controller. Who is a controller? A controller is somebody who reviews and approves the log files from firefighting activities. Okay, so you're basically saying that there is nobody. If you say set it to yes, then you're saying that there is no need for monitoring the logs. Basically, that's what it is. But you don't set it up. I would say no in this case. So set parameter to no to prevent creation of firefighters without a controller. So if you want to force that every firefighter needs to be assigned to a controller, then you set it to no. Okay, so I would say no here because I would like to have every firefighter logs to be monitored by a controller. Okay, so these are the parameters that are related to EAM. Okay, so depending on your requirement, your scenarios, you need to set them up accordingly. So the mandatory ones that you have, I would say, is a 4000, which is actually really a mandatory in both the GRC system as well as the plugin system. Then 4001, I would say, would again be mandatory because this tells you for how many days the firefighter ID would be valid. And then I would also set these up 4003, 4004, 4005, and 4006 to yes to capture the logs. Okay, I would do that. And again, 4010 again is a mandatory parameter to be set in both GRC system as well as the plugin system. So these are the parameters that I will definitely set up. And then depending on whether I'm using MSMP and ERM, I would be set up the remaining parameters, right? So this is again one of the steps that parameters need to be set for EAM, okay?